Thank you. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Thank you guys. So we're going to get started. You're good. We switched it up. Lindsay's helping us drive. But thank you so much for the introduction. So welcome everybody. We're really excited to have you here today. Our session is Virtual Career Expo, Improving Equity, Connecting Communities, and Increasing PSE Awareness. So we're going to start with just a few brief introductions. My name is Alex Holmes, and I am the lead mentoring coordinator for Gear Up for the Future grant at the K20 Center for Educational and Community Renewal in Norman, Oklahoma at the University of Oklahoma. Our grant for Future specifically serves schools in suburban areas across the state of Oklahoma, and our other two grants cover other areas in the state as well, for my colleagues that are here on the team. And I've also worked at K20 as a technology and a professional development specialist. Prior to that, I spent 8 years in public education as an elementary school teacher. So, Will?
Hello, I'm Will Markham. I'm also on the Gear Up for Future grant. I'm in my second year with K20, first year in mentoring. I started in Gear Up on the data side, and I transitioned to mentoring about a year ago. So I don't really have any education background. I came from the Boy Scouts straight out of college, so a little bit different field than education, but super excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Jami Henson, and I am the mentoring coordinator for Gear Up for My Success for the K20 Center at OU. So our grant serves schools in the rural areas of Oklahoma. And before I came to the center 2 years ago, I was an English teacher at a high school, and before that, I taught college composition.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Ayanna Wheeler. I'm with the Gear Up OKC grant. So I work primarily with schools in Oklahoma City, and I am the student experience coordinator. Prior to working with the K20 Center with Gear Up, I worked for 7 years in New York City as a program coordinator at a community college.
So this is our mentoring team, and we're really excited to start. We are going to be talking about and thinking about career exploration as kind of a more broad start to our conversation today before we get into the specifics of our program specifically. So we're going to ask you guys 2 quick questions about your past experience on this topic. We're going to guide you through each question one at a time. They'll be pretty brief with your answers coming in through the chat. But your feedback will help us with this conversation to get started. There are no right or wrong answers, but we will be giving you guys some research to help kind of support and guide our conversation. So our first question that you'll see here on the screen is, according to you, when should career exploration be introduced to students? This could be formal, informal, whatever you're thinking. Your answers to be putting in the chat would be birth, preschool age, elementary, middle school, high school, undergraduate, graduate school, or career. Those are the stops on the career roadmap. So as you think about your answer, you'll be typing these into the chat, and we'll look for some brief answers here. And if anybody wants to share an experience or kind of a reason for their answer, you can type the word share in the chat, and we'll call you to unmute yourself and share that way. We're seeing a lot of preschool, really early introduction of when you think. You can use those numbers too. So we're seeing those numbers 1 and 2 as well to come in for birth, preschool, early career, elementary school, some middle school for our answers as well. So thank you guys for sending that in the chat. Give a couple more seconds for a few more answers here. But it looks like the majority of the participants with us today are thinking early, you know, is definitely helpful. I see Amy says elementary school, some, but definitely middle school. So thank you for those answers. We're gonna go to our next question now. So question 2 is, when were you introduced to career exploration? Same answers as before as your options, and you'll type those in the chat. You can either use the numbers for the stops on the roadmap, or you can use the words from your own personal experience. When were you introduced to career exploration? If you have any stories or experiences you'd like to share, you can type the word share into the chat and we'll have you unmute to tell your example or experience. We are seeing kind of a wider range of responses coming in, still some early responses, but quite a few people in the middle school, high school, undergraduate area as well. And I'm just gonna keep looking for a couple of responses here as we come in. Yeah, there's a nice range. So Douglas has given us a range of 4, 5, 6, 7. So he had multiple experiences in that time frame. So that's great feedback there too. Lisa's told us informally, yes, and just kind of introductory. So one of the experiences that we've had from a previous participant when we've discussed this session, this participant was talking about elementary school, how they had a career day every year. And that kind of stands out to them as the most when they focused on careers that had special vehicles, volunteers came. So it was a good visual, hands-on, early experience for kids, just to make the introduction for careers. So thank you guys so much for answering those in the chat. Like we said, we've got some research here to support career exploration and deepening the understanding of that, actually occurring by middle school. So according to recent research found in February 2019 in the publication of the Journal of Vocational Behavior, empirical studies have shown that many individual factors can foster or inhibit adolescents' career exploration. The studies show that individual beliefs affect career exploration. So for example, among high school students, there's growing evidence of a positive relationship between career exploration and students' capability to decide on a career. And then additionally, researchers found growing evidence that contextual support, which is our social, interpersonal, instrumental support, acts as a key facilitator in adolescent career exploration. So an example there would be social support from family, peers, friends, and educators that promotes that career exploration among the middle school and the high school students. So all of this aligns with the theoretical assertions and kind of points to middle school, if not earlier, being the key time to be doing a lot of career exploration and information for students. Just quickly, our essential question today is how can your community help support your goal in improving equity among the students while increasing post-secondary education awareness? We are going to now go to our learning objectives.
All right, learning objectives, because we are educators and we have to have objectives, right? During this session, you will engage in a virtual career experience, envision implementation of the virtual experience into your program, and assess the value of these experiences. So we're going to go ahead and dive into that. So let's begin exploring virtual career expos and that implementation process. So we've prepared some resources to help you on your virtual career journey. So we're going to start with a short video. While you watch the video, what we want you to do is try to take note of keywords that stand out to you. You can enter these words into a collaborative word cloud through a tool called Mentimeter. So simply scan the QR code on the screen with your camera on your handheld device. If you don't have a way to do that, you can also use the URL that is posted on the slide, and you can just open a new browser to access it. So you're going to enter those keywords into the Mentimeter while you watch this video. So let's get started.
Zoom Into Your Career is a program that invites students to a virtual career expo with professionals from all over the state, even the country or world.
How's everybody doing? My name is Nicholas White.
I am Christina Hain.
My name is Scott Selesky.
Students learn about professions they might not have heard of, all while connecting their education to future employment opportunities. Best of all, anyone can do it, and the K20 Center mentoring team is here to guide you each step of the way.
I'm an assistant professor in the School of Meteorology.
I'm an architect here in Oklahoma City.
I'm a senior project manager.
Here's why it matters. Middle school is the time in students' lives where they're starting to learn about future careers. Being exposed to as many careers as possible broadens their perspectives on what job paths are available once they graduate. Virtual career expos take place online from the comfort of the classroom and office. Online career expos decrease the time required for volunteers to participate, and it makes volunteering easier.
It used to be that you had to drive to the school. Like you will spend a whole morning just to give a 45-minute talk. And now you can do it from your office. It takes 30 minutes of your day, maybe 45 minutes of your day, and you're done.
Since it's online, students can attend from their classrooms and employers can present from their office. And by presenting, you can inspire students to follow a path to a fulfilling career.
I definitely like the idea of at least hopefully getting students interested in, career opportunities in the sciences and thinking about things like that early on.
In general, it's a very positive feeling once you're done, like that you reach out, that you shared, you feel good about yourself.
Here are some tips and tricks to help you prepare for virtual career talks at your schools. First, you'll want to assess student interest and needs. You can do this in a variety of ways, like having students fill out career interest surveys connected to your state initiatives. Next, you'll want to think about the logistics of virtual career talks. Ask yourself questions like, who is the target audience? What kinds of career clusters would best suit my students? When will we host it? The who, what, when, where, why, and how questions are great ways to begin thinking about the broader details that'll help you organize your event. Once you have an idea of how the event will go, you need to gather professional volunteers to be your speakers. Reach out to friends, coworkers, universities, and any other professional organizations you can contact to see if anyone would be willing to volunteer. Our volunteers have ranged from chemical engineers.
So anytime you go to the grocery store and you see milk jugs, just think that it all started with these little pellets.
To race car drivers.
I do want to kind of get into the top level almost immediately, and then around 30, 35, kind of get out and maybe help another young driver along by owning a team and focusing on the business side of it.
To meteorologists.
This thing will let us know by counting how much it's rained. If it does this 100 times, that's 1 inch of rain.
Now that you've lined up your speakers, it's important to communicate with them regularly. Make sure they know their role and responsibilities, and try and make it easy for them to be a presenter. Also, ask your presenters if they know of any extra engagement opportunities they could offer to students, like shadowing a professional, internships, or volunteer programs.
We can work it out to where you can come and I can teach you what I know, some of the basic things that I know. It'll look good on your resume. It'll look good so that you can get other jobs in the future. And maybe I can teach you a thing or two that you didn't know before.
You should know how to use the virtual platform and be able to explain it to both classrooms and presenters. Ensure your sessions are scheduled correctly and that everyone has the information they need, like date, time, link, and password to the session. Now that you've done the hard work, it's time to enjoy the session. Make sure the staff facilitator, speaker, and class are ready to go.
And you can just take it away.
Thanks for having me, and hi everybody.
After the session, follow up with the speakers and staff, getting feedback about their experience and priming their interest for helping with future events.
If you haven't done so already, go ahead and take a moment to enter those keywords into the Mentimeter. As you saw in the video, virtual career talks can be a really great way to connect students to a larger community. And it's also a great way to help them gain more understanding of post-secondary education opportunities that they'll have. So of course, virtual career talks take a lot of time to plan. So to help you pass these opportunities along to your students, we've created a combination of resources for you to use. Included in these resources is a list of tips and tricks for what details to consider as you plan your event. These resources can be found linked in the chat, so go ahead and check for that link. And now we're excited to explain the steps that we took in our own virtual career expos.
All right, so you might wonder how we recruited speakers for our virtual career expos. We highlighted a few in the video. So right now we're going to share that process. Many of our speakers were right under our noses. We reached out to friends, family, and colleagues via email, social media, and personal conversations. Additionally, we requested for our Gear Up schools to have students complete career interest surveys and let us know the career clusters that students were most interested in. For each Expo Day, we made sure to include a diverse set of speakers who represented different career clusters. This provided our schools with a variety of careers to select from, and it gave them, our schools, also more options who they could choose from, you know, to align more with the interest not only of their students, but again, what they see that's a need in their community. So to give you an idea of the career speakers schools could choose from, here are a few of the speakers who participated in our virtual career expo. So we're going to start showing the slide again so that we can show the pictures. All right, great. So first we have Greg Hellman. He is the founder and CEO of OccuPath Virtual Reality Company in Oklahoma. He is also a Gear Up alumni, which he talked about extensively with our students. He was also from Oklahoma City Public Schools, and so that was a really nice connection for our students to see someone who came from their communities on my grant. Next, we have Therese LaRose. She is a histotechnologist at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital Medical Lab in Pennsylvania. And while the title sounds like history, she actually works with basically like taking specimens that doctors need to have examined to determine if there's like a disease. So she works in a lab and dissects specimens. Next, we have Rod Sanders, a lieutenant with the University of Oklahoma Police Department. And a lot of our schools definitely had students interested in criminal justice, so this was a really good opportunity for them to join his talk. Moving on to STEM, we have Tara Schneeberger. She is a chemical engineer with Chevron Phillips Chemical Company in Texas. She also did a phenomenal job speaking with students. She was very engaging in her career talk, and that's something we really recommend, is that presenters have like a PowerPoint, or they can actually show some tools that they use at their jobs. Tara did that, and the students really found it interesting. And all of our speakers are on our K20 YouTube channel, which is included in a helpful resource document that Jami mentioned earlier, so you can definitely check out our videos. And then finally, we have Tyler Sublette. He is a project manager with J.E. Dunn Construction Company in Oklahoma. So those were a few of our speakers. As you can tell, while we're based in Oklahoma, all of our speakers were not from there. We had speakers across the nation as well as in other countries. So what we want to think now, move more towards, is you, like your community, your students. So if you were going to plan a virtual career expo to help benefit your students, what type of speakers could you recruit from your community? Go ahead and feel free if you want to share your response in the chat. Like, what type of speakers would you recruit from your community? And if you're still thinking about that, if you're wondering like, well, who's interested, who would I be interested in, or who would my students be interested in? Again, like providing a career interest survey is always a great idea to think about what type of speakers you could recruit from your own community. Oh, I see we have from Maria. Thank you so much. She mentioned healthcare workers, and definitely given what's going on right now with the pandemic and how they are such essential workers, that's definitely a great idea to get a capture of that. So thank you so much for sharing, Maria.
And Ayanna, to go with what you're talking about with thinking about who you could recruit from your community for your schools, I know some of the feedback that we received from our early sessions, the teacher had said, well, my students weren't as interested in this speaker as I was, because I was really wanting to hear about this career, but they hadn't maybe asked their students, like from the list of speakers that we had available, which ones that they were most interested in. So definitely just asking and getting that student feedback, whether it's more formal in a survey or informal was definitely helpful for them to come back another time and have even higher engagement with their students for wanting to see the careers that they were interested in.
No, thank you. Yes, that's definitely important. Just asking that quick and easy question. So thank you for sharing that, Alex. A few more responses came in while you were sharing. We have Lorraine mention a dental assistant. So still in the healthcare field, awesome. Tanika mentioned a personal trainer for her athletes. So that is definitely a really good connection. We also have a response. Oh, these are very detailed. Marcia says Boeing, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Alaska Airlines in Washington. So that's really great. Agriculture, that is a really important field. And there's so much that we had some agriculture we spoke with, and it's such a diverse career, and it provides so many different opportunities. So that's really great. Engineers, I see engineers twice. So that's definitely a key area. Teachers, we can't have any of these careers without teachers. So yes, I'm happy to hear someone said teachers. STEM, Amy mentioned STEM, local big companies, Zillow, Google, Amazon. Google and Amazon, definitely. Coding is really a growing field, and so that is really important to connect students to speakers from those clusters. So thank you. You all are sharing a lot of great ideas, and these are some, I think our team, we need to take note. I'm seeing some really good suggestions here. College president, yes, leadership, and our higher ed. We want students to be able to see themselves, so that's really great. Politician, we have from, I think, trades. Yes, Joy mentioned that, and that's a key component, Joy, so thank you for sharing. We mentioned post-secondary education. So initially we came in thinking, oh, well, let's focus on college, but it's not just about college. It's also about career opportunities. So definitely providing opportunities to expose students to the trades is really important too. Amy mentioned the military. That is definitely a growing field, especially in Oklahoma. We have a huge military base and presence here. So that's really important. And AmeriCorps, yes. And finally, pilots and airplane mechanics from Tanika as well. So thank you all. Those are some really great ideas. So you have the speakers there. Now it's like, what can you do once you have those speakers? So we hope that our session today can help give you some next steps. So we're going to go ahead to our next question that we have for you all. And that is, how can you determine your students' interests and the needs of your school and or community? So earlier we mentioned like the career interest survey. Alex mentioned just, asking the students. So are there any other ideas you all have for just trying to find out how you can discover or confirm what your students' interests might be? I know what this came up too last year previously when we talked about our expos last year. Some of our teachers, and this was mentioned in a previous session that we conducted, was that not only should you expose students to the careers that they're interested in, but also exposing them to careers that they're not even familiar with. Sometimes our students don't even know what they can do. If you haven't been exposed to different career opportunities, you're going to choose the same things. And so that's also one key component. What's nice about the virtual expos is that it allows students to experience areas that they're interested in, but also learn about new topics that they may not have known. And that could be a starting point for them. Cynthia, thank you. You mentioned survey the students. Yes. Oh, and Ashley Johnson said that they asked students their dream careers during Gear Up Week. That is a really nice connection back to Gear Up and incorporating that and letting students know the connections between Gear Up and their careers. So I love that, Ashley. So thank you all so much. You all shared some really great ideas, and we really do appreciate your feedback.
Awesome. Thank you, Ayanna. So when planning a virtual event, it's important to know what works best for your school staff. One of the ways that we did this was to regularly gather feedback from our staff. After each expo, we requested for participating staffs to provide us with feedback on how effective they thought the event was, along with the challenges that they encountered. This feedback is critical in the learning and development process because we can take this feedback from schools to continually improve and grow our virtual career expo. One of the biggest barriers we found was technology. We heard quotes like, getting the technology to work the first time around, and the only barrier was my nervousness about using technology. Early on, we learned that our school staff didn't feel equipped to handle the technology needed to host an expo. Based on that feedback, we created a school guide as well as host practice Zoom sessions. These practice sessions in turn help schools feel ready and boosted confidence for staff members who weren't familiar with the technology. We also included live support for school staff in case they needed to communicate with us on the day of the event. Once we made these changes, we received positive feedback about the technology. We heard things like easy to use Zoom interaction between presenter and students, fun and interactive, engaging with careers the kids were interested in, relatable to the student population, and I'm excited about how this can be incorporated into the curriculum as well. Also, we as counselors can have these at any time now that we have this technology and understand how it works. School staff reported greater ease of use and liked the ability to have a Q&A portion at the end of the expo with the speakers, either through the chat or face-to-face. Now, some of you might be thinking, what if I don't have the technology at my school to handle a career expo? How can I do this? Well, we've got some pointers that we can kind of guide you to, and you might actually have some of the technology that you need, because there's really not a whole lot extra you'll need. To connect with professionals virtually, you can use Zoom or any other video conferencing app, GoToMeeting, Google Hangout, anything like that that you would use. The same technology you use to project your computer onto a TV, wall, or smart board can display a Zoom meeting for your students, allowing them to see the career speaker. The only other piece of technology that you might need is a webcam or phone, so that way that's also on the Zoom call, so that way the presenter can see the students and interact with them. If you're in need of any extra technology, such as a projector, a webcam, or anything along those lines, consider looking into opportunities for grants, such as Donors Choose. That's a good one that helps educators, or seeking support from local businesses. These can be great options to support your classrooms. Now, you might be thinking about questions. What barriers or challenges might you face when implementing this into the classroom? Here's some questions that we've had to consider and the solutions we came up with. If you have any other questions not listed here, we can discuss them in our Q&A portion at the end. So, what barriers or challenges do you think your school will have? This might include time constraints, technology barriers, or volunteer limitations. At K20, we deal with time constraints by sending out doodle polls to our participating schools to make sure that we can find the best time slots. We deal with a lot of schools, so we have to make sure we get as close to the bell schedules as possible. To overcome our volunteer limitations, we reach out to our co-workers, friends, go through social media, or just ask anyone that we know to refer people that they know that might sign up. Most of our speakers that we've had throughout our 2 years of doing this have come from referrals, which is super nice because we didn't have to personally know everyone. And we were able to reach a wide variety of speakers. And that this way we were able to give schools multiple speakers per hour, so that way they had multiple options. Now, but Alex, what do we do about technology barriers?
So in the time of COVID, a lot of schools and students have a lot more resources with technology, just depending on what schools potentially have done with funding and everything. But even within your school, pre-COVID, post-COVID, you can check with your library media specialist. Maybe the library has something already that's accessible that you might not know about to be able to stream the virtual career expo. The main technology, like Will said, you'll need your computer, some sort of video conferencing program like Zoom, like what we're using today. That's what we use for our expos is Zoom. And some kind of setup that, again, lets you showcase your expo to a large audience. And if necessary, you can look into requesting funds to purchase extra technology. again, some schools right now are meeting in person with their students. Some schools have teaching and learning virtually with students remote. So that's something that we've taken into consideration. It's a new challenge that we've had to kind of overcome, is that our sessions have been available, you know, through technology here, but how do we reach those students that are learning from home? So something that we have done for fall 2020, which we just wrapped our Expo sessions last week or the week prior. Everything's running together, but just within the last couple of weeks, we had our fall Expo sessions, and we did reach students remotely by streaming some of our Expo sessions through YouTube. And then for student privacy, we didn't have the camera on, but we did have a Google form that the students could still submit questions to the speaker during the session. So we made sure to, you know, manage student privacy, reach students that were learning from home, and try to make sure everyone was included in some way.
Yeah. Our third question, Jamie, what do we do if a speaker cancels?
Yes, unfortunately, this happens more often than we would like it to happen, especially right now because life is chaotic and things happen. Speakers get sick, speakers have schedule conflicts, and sometimes at the very last minute, even the day of, they will contact us and say, we are so sorry, but we can't present today. So one thing that you can do to help prevent this is make sure that you have more than one speaker who is presenting during that time slot. So say if you have a 9 to 10 o'clock career talk session, make sure that you have 2 different speakers or 3 different speakers that classrooms or students can choose to go and listen to. That way, when one of those speakers cancels, you can quickly reach out to all of the people who were signed up to participate, and you can say, we're so sorry, they had to cancel. Here are your other options, so that they're not left just without anyone to listen to for that hour. So I would also recommend stay in contact with your volunteers, your speakers regularly. Check on them, run practice sessions with them, see if they need anything, because that constant contact with volunteers, it helps ensure that they don't cancel at the last minute because they feel more of a personal connection to you.
Yeah. And our last question, Ayanna, what if my school doesn't allow us to use Zoom? Because we've had that happen.
Definitely, and we're having it happen more and more because of the Zoom and privacy issues. So if that does happen and your schools may have blocked Zoom, you can definitely use other video conferencing programs like Google Hangouts, Google Meet, or GoToMeeting. These are all free and allow you to connect virtually with professionals, just like with Zoom. And as Jamie mentioned in the chat, we also utilize YouTube for our past Expo this month, where we held a live stream session. So that could also be an option. And students, while they could not interact with the professional, like face-to-face, like they do with our traditional virtual Expo, we did have a Google form created so they could still submit questions, and we asked the questions to the professional on their behalf.
Awesome. So when you were watching the video, you submitted keywords that you heard during the video into our Mentimeter. And so we've turned that into a word cloud, as you can see on the screen. Note words that are bigger than others have been used more often. So our flexible, volunteers, accessible, and online are kind of our big 4 there in the middle. And those are kind of the key components of the Virtual Career Expo. Flexible is definitely a good one because they can be done anytime. Online is good because, again, you're not having the volunteer drive to the school. You don't have to have the schools drive to the volunteer. Ours only take about 45 minutes to an hour, so you're not wasting an entire day busing kids back and forth. It's free other than the volunteer and your students' time. You just gotta make sure you work out your schedule, stuff like that. Ease of use, network, student survey, all those are good keywords that are encompassing our Virtual Career Expo that we want to make sure that you guys are aware that this is a program designed to make career exploration easier on you, on the students, and have your students be able to reach a wider variety of speakers. Obviously, we mentioned the very beginning about your immediate area, which is a great starting area. But like Ayanna said earlier, we've had speakers outside of the US. We had one speaker from the UK speak last fall, which was really cool. We've had New York, we've had Pennsylvania, we've had Oklahoma, we've had Texas, we've had all over. So it's really cool for our students to be able to connect with people that they otherwise would have had no available access to.
Before we move on to our question and answer period for today's session, we're going to take a moment to reflect with a quick learning strategy that we at the K20 Center call POMS, also known as Point of Most Significance. You can find more of our learning strategies, our instructional strategies on our website, learn k20center.ou.edu. Some really cool resources and just did a lot of updating, so go explore that. We also have included the information on getting to this website in your resources packet. So what we're going to do today for the POMS strategy is that we want you to think about the new information that you've learned in this session, the conversations that we've had through the chat and participant feedback, and we want you to highlight that most important point, that thing that stood out most to you. Once you have that point of significance, if you will, we would love for you to post that to social media, whichever site that you use, and we have included our hashtags. So if you would hashtag so that it connects back to us. You can also, if you would like to share your response in the chat, or if you would like to unmute and share your response live, you can feel free to do that. So we're going to give you a couple of minutes to think about that response and share.
And Jamie, while we're talking about POMS and thinking about responses, I believe we're going to have our resource guide that we can share up on the screen with you all, because that might end up being something that is significant to you as you're thinking about that. Lindsay's also dropped the link in the chat. And it will have you do a forced copy. So you can make a copy of that and have access to it now. We'll make sure that we get it over to Beth or Marcy as well to make sure that you guys have it available. But we're going to share it here on the screen and kind of talk through some of our resources with you all, just as we're finishing up our POMs before we go into our Q&A time. All right, so this is the helpful resources document that Jamie had mentioned earlier. We have our YouTube playlist linked as the first item there. This will have all of our virtual career expos that we've done so far that have been edited and submitted. So Lindsay will show you what the playlist looks like. We had at least 28, 29 the last time that I had checked. We could have added a few more since then, which would be, you know, it's great that we keep adding on here. One of the nice things about flexibility that we were talking about with our expos and recording these and having them available, actually one of our middle schools that had several classrooms that was supposed to attend in our fall session had internet trouble and they weren't able to attend. So what they could do is once their internet comes back, they could jump on the YouTube playlist and access things. They could send this to their students that are learning remotely and have an activity to go with it. Once we get these edited, we can send those videos from the sessions that they were supposed to attend straight to them, and they can kind of hold their own expo day that works best for their schedule. And then students that see something, they can jump on another video that's interesting to them. So that's been really helpful for us to have. The next thing is the Learn site that we also mentioned, which has just gone through a recent change. So maybe Lindsay, strategies might be the right area to go into to kind of show them what we've got going on, since we mentioned POMs. And all of the resources through the Learn site are free. So you can jump in there and find what you need. There are filters to help, you know, figure out what the best instructional strategy might be for what you're needing. You can limit it by grade level, time, what style of activity and feedback you're wanting from your students. I know when I was in the classroom, I would have, loved to have more resources like this, and knowing that they're there now, I share them with all my friends that are still teaching, like, have you used this? Have you used that? They're great to kind of get out of what your comfort zone is for student engagement within your classroom. There are also lessons and different professional learning things as well. So make sure you take note of that website and definitely use it. Maybe Lindsay, before we jump off of Learn, sorry to go back, will you show us the professional learning tab just so we've got it kind of in our eyes? And again, we're adding more things here as we go. And if anybody else wants to jump in and kind of share about any of these items, go ahead and
in for a second.
Yeah.
As they have mentioned already a couple of times, that our Learn site has gone through a complete overhaul recently. In the next couple of weeks, there will be another tab over here that's going to say student resources. And so these are all activities that are in student-friendly language that the students can download, or you as the teacher are able to download and then upload to your Google Classroom or your Canvas page for the students to do. A lot of them are career-based, but we also have some
student experiences,
some virtual campus visits that they'll be able to go through and visit campuses all over the U.S. It's a pretty neat resource that's coming in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Lindsay.
I'm going to hop in as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
Let me just mention the tech tools for a moment. So if you are like me, when I was in the classroom, I really struggled with technology. It was probably my greatest struggle. And just knowing what tools to use, where to find them, what they could be used for. So these tech tools make that really simple. At the center, we have gone through so many of those resources and hold them down. And we have found here are some things that teachers can use, whether they be free or some of them you have to pay a little bit for, but we give you kind of an overview of what those tools are and how they might be useful. And when I was a teacher, I would have loved this resource.
And why not? I'm going to jump into.
Come on, Ayanna, join the group.
I just wanted to also mention, because Jamie connected me with the technology, our games tab. We have some really exciting games there that are really hands-on. And since a lot of students are learning asynchronous right now, these could be a great tool to share with students. Get a life, or it's really similar to choosing a career, but it's also connected to like college and a career tech training, but students can actually like go through an entire life and they make certain choices, and that choice puts them on a certain path. So we really highly recommend the Get a Life game. It's also free. We love free, and mind your own budget. So these are some really cool resources we just wanted to share.
Awesome. All right, we're going to jump back over to our resources doc here. The next thing we'll show you is our K20 COVID landing page. This was something that we developed as we continue to add to our list of resources. It's kind of a one-stop shop for everyone that's needing something. So we've got lunch and learn webinars that we've done, the game-based learning, Oklahoma's promise information, talking about ICAP. So for Oklahoma, these are the different indicators for a career plan that our students will have to complete by the time they get through high school. So that was some information there. And then here's our career exploration area, which is what we would love for you guys to dive into when you've got some free time. We do have a family guide and a student guide. So like one of our, I want to say, who was it? Who said we had student friendly? Lindsay, I think, had mentioned on our student tab. So our student guide is written for students to be able to access on their own if needed and not need a lot of additional support. And that was important to us to have both versions. The parent guide also describes ways that families can be supportive, because we know that not every student has just the parent. They have their families that are there to support them as well. But that's to help kind of give an overview of what the students would be doing and learning. And then we have some lessons and activities here. We've got Operation Pre-Med, which connects to health sciences, Art for All, we've got chemical engineering. So we've started to add in activities that go into each career cluster. And so by the early part of the spring, we'll have an activity for every career cluster for students to kind of take a further step into exploring something that they might show interest in. And then some other kind of general activities to go with our videos on our YouTube page. So those are right there. And then there's our, we've got the student interest survey as well. So it's all on there. Have a look whenever you guys get a chance. And if you have any types of questions or feedback, we'll have our email address posted on the slide after the Q&A slide. So feel free to reach out to us at any time with any questions you might have. And then after that, we've just got our general guide for career talks. We thought this would be really helpful for anyone who's kind of wanting to get this up and running in their school or organization. So these are just the pieces of information kind of step by step to help guide you through preparation and follow through of your own virtual career expo. And then we also included the volunteer guide that we send to our volunteers to help prepare them as well. And like Will mentioned, we've added in some practice runs with our volunteers that have made them feel a lot more comfortable about sharing their information, kind of having us get a preview to see if there are any gaps that they would have filled in just to recommend for the students to know information about, and then just basic Zoom things like sharing your screen and using the different features that they might not be as familiar with to get them ready for those sessions. So I think time-wise, what we'll do now that you've had a chance to take a look at this resource, we'll jump into Q&A time. So if you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask us, we're definitely here to answer. And just type your question in the chat. We've had some really great feedback from POMs already coming in that I've seen Will give and Jamie give some responses to as well. So you can continue doing your POMs. You can ask us any questions you might have. I don't know how my colleagues feel, but if you're comfortable with turning on your camera and so we can give, you know, see you guys screen to screen, I know that would be kind of fun for us to get to see who our participants are if you're in that space and you're comfortable with sharing your camera on. But if you have any questions, then feel free to jump in.
Just as a time check, we have about 10 minutes left.
Thank you.
Looks like Ashley had a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Will.
We do host these during school hours, so long before the event, probably 2 months or so, that's when we start really sending out information to our schools. Like we mentioned, we send a doodle poll to make sure that we know when schools' bell schedules are, and then we kind of poll them about their best times available early on, so that way we know which hours fit best. And then at K20, we service close to 80 schools now for this year. So it's a lot between 8th and 9th graders. So there's a lot of bell schedules we have to work with. Not every school can hit every mark, which is unfortunate, but that's why we record them. And then we go from there. We try to make sure we usually do 2 mornings and either 1 or 2 in the afternoon, depending on availability. That gives the schools more freedom to be able to attend at least one of the sessions. And again, if they can't do it, we put them online for them to show their students at any time.
And we've tried to be flexible with our scheduling as much as possible, especially like Will said, with kind of balancing the line between our cohorts being in middle school and high school with a varying schedule. So we tried to reach out and get administrator and teacher feedback early before the school year started, just to know what timing would make the most sense for our sessions. But we asked them for feedback after they've completed the fall expo to see if we can make any adjustments for the spring sessions that might allow for more schools to attend just based on timing. So continuing to be flexible and look for feedback from our schools and our participants has been really helpful. Did we see anybody else that wanted to share?
I think there's a new question. Douglas has a question.
I can try to take it, and please, for my colleagues, jump in. So Douglas, you raised a really important question because we want to make sure that we are having access to all students. So we don't work directly with parents. For our grant, we have liaisons at our schools, and we coordinate with usually as a counselor, sometimes as an assistant principal or a teacher, and that's who we work with to share information about our resources. But we definitely have all types of students who participate. Additionally, for our live stream Expo, we'll make sure that we also are able to get closed captioning so that any hearing impaired students, because we noticed that was an issue that came up when we were doing our sessions last year. We also try to make sure we give out information ahead of time so that way students can know about the speaker in advance. So that way that if there's any accessibility issues, students and the teachers and families can explore what this career is. I know I remember talking to one teacher in the 7th grade. She actually gave a homework assignment to look up what the career was. And so we try to make sure we give the information out in advance so that all students can participate regardless of how they take in information. I don't know if anyone else had anything they wanted to add or if that answers your question, Douglas.
I was just going to add, like you had mentioned, the closed captioning, all of our YouTube videos are ADA approved closed captioning. We go through that so that way any student has the ability to watch them. We hope that they'll be able to do that at home. And our Career Expo is just the beginning of our mentoring kind of pathway. We've got a big three that we kind of call, and the Career Expo is the beginning of it. And we have activities that we are working on. So that way when students are interested in a career, they'll do these activities, and these will be built for them to do on their own time to kind of further go into that career cluster. So hopefully they will be able to do that on their own time. We have a parent guide as well for those students to be able to get help if need be, but they're meant to be student driven.
Yes. Oh, and that reminded me, Will, when you mentioned about the activities. In the last spring, we were supposed to, but COVID happened, take our students to the Metro Tech Aviation Center. It's a program, it's vocational, and students can actually join the program for free in high school. And students were going to be able to have like a hands-on experience. So that's one of we call them our college to career forums, one of the big three that Will mentioned. And so those tend to be more of our career tech focused opportunities. So again, that's a great opportunity for all students who may need more of that hands-on experience to be able to get that through the Career Expo.
We want to tell you guys, thank you so much for joining us for our session today. Of course, we've got 5 minutes left, so if there are any additional questions, we're happy to answer, or even if there are other POMs that you guys had after we finished our question answer time and went over that resource guide, we'd love to see your feedback, because even in sessions like this, any feedback we get really helps us develop new ideas and ways to adjust and grow our programming that we use with our students. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. This is our group email that we all receive, gearupmentor@groups.ou.edu. So if you send us a message, then we'll all have eyes on it and be able to work on responding to you and keep that dialogue going. So again, we wanted to thank you guys so much for coming. And we hope that you're able to take something away that's helpful about our Career Expos and the virtual platform that we've used. I think you're muted, Marcy.
I was saying lovely things. I just wanted to, again, say thank you to the K20 team for presenting today. We know we're all very busy these days, and your information is so timely and so needed by many of us. So I really appreciate the time that you put into preparing the presentation and being here today, and really for sharing all those resources. One of my pet peeves is duplication of effort, and it's everywhere. So if you know, your willingness to share, our willingness to share saves folks time, then it's more time we can spend directly working with students. So thank you, and I am going to stop the recording now.